Greetings, wanderers. Tonight, under the ancient canopy of Yggdrasil, let me spin you tales whispered in the winds. I am Hallbjørn, your guide through the 9 realms of Norse mythology. From Odin's wisdom to Loki's mischief. From the birth of worlds to the impending twilight that is Ragnarök. These are the stories etched in the stars. As we gather around this fire, may embers of these Norse tales kindle a flame of inspiration and curiosity in our hearts and our minds, forging a connection to the ancient sagas that will endure long after the last ember fades.
One can gather that Loki has made many mistakes. Many of the Norse woes came from his boredom, his meddling, and even the few times he tries to help, it often fails. Whether it's his intrinsic mischief or honest mishaps is unknown. One thing is often certain, that he is able to rectify most of his mistakes. Most. But a parent cannot always rectify the deeds of their children. Loki has had many children, but 3 come to mind that tip the balance of the cosmos and by their very existence threaten the coming of Ragnarök. All 3 were the result of his relations with the Jotuness Angrboda. The first child between the trickster and she who bodes anguish was Jormungandr, a great draconic serpent, so large that it formed a circle all around Midgard, giving him the name the World Serpent. Biting his tail in the waters surrounding the realm of man, this vile, venomous worm of the deep was the mortal enemy of Thor. During the god's twilight, Odin knew that it would flood Midgard, and Jormungandr was destined to kill Thor. In the waters he stays, banished until Ragnarök. The second child of Loki was a daughter by the name of Hel, the goddess of death. Half her body was a rotting corpse, and the other half that of a grim woman. She resides in her hall in Niflheim. Her hall, also called Hell, was a place of agonizing stagnation, biting cold, and frozen indifference. With only a few exceptions, this is where the dead journey. It is here that the dead will also rise at the end of days. It is she that will greedily withhold the soul of Odin's favored son, Balder, another catalyst of Ragnarök. The third child is the one the gods feared most. It was a wolf by the name of Fenrir. Loki, as with his other children, brought Fenrir to Asgard, and as a young small pup, Odin, with one look, saw no pet. He saw another terrible entity of Ragnarök. Odin knew Fenrir well, even before laying eye upon him. After all, Fenrir was fated to end Odin, to devour the Allfather. One can think that Odin muttered under his breath, "This is the wolf that kills me." So it was decided that instead of banishing Fenrir, as they did with Jormungandr to the sea, or Hel to the underworld, they attempted to raise him themselves in Asgard, Odin keeping his eye on his killer. The wolf grew up in Asgard and under watch, but only Tyr, the god of victory and justice, was brave enough to feed the beast as he grew. So it was but for a short time. The small pup was growing into a colossal wolf at an astounding rate. The gods once again worried. The gods decided to chain Fenrir. In order to convince him to let them put chain upon him, they stated that each chain was a game and was a test of the wolf's strength. Each chain that was presented got larger and stronger, and each chain was broken by Fenrir. Each break, the gods nervously applauded and cheered the wolf in order to keep him convinced. Desperate, the gods sent a messenger to Svartalfheim, back to the dwarves, so that they may fashion a chain for them that was stronger than any other. For them, with the sound of a cat's footsteps, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the breath of a fish, and the spit of a bird, they created such a chain. It was created with things impossible to struggle against because they themselves were impossible. Non-existence brought to existence in the form of Gleipnir, a chain, of course, long enough to wrap around the beast's neck, but no thinner than the chain of a necklace. Fenrir grew suspicious. He refused to be fettered unless one of the gods placed their hands within his mouth, an assurance if he were to be chained indefinitely. The gods, of course, hesitated. None of them wanted to suffer the loss of a hand or limb, or break an oath by flinching and pulling away. Finally, the brave Tyr once again came to Fenrir, conceded to his demands, and placed his hands in the maw of the beast. Gleipnir became fastened to Fenrir, and Fenrir pulled and tugged with all his might. But the chain stood fast. It was then that Fenrir tore the hand of Tyr off and swallowed it whole. Tyr had no intention of flinching. For the good of all and the good of the 9 realms, his sacrifice ensured justice, and it also ensured that the gods had not broken an oath without recompense. Thus, 3 children of Loki are bound and banished. 3 world enders imprisoned. That is, until Ragnarök.